If you are someone that struggles with gambling addiction, my word, do I sympathize. That was me for so long, in many ways is me. I'm currently 8 months off of any form of gambling activity, but will no doubt be tested aggressively in the future, and it's something that I need to stand guard of every single day. My name's Matt. I'm a compulsive gambler in recovery, and I like to think of myself as your mind and movement mentor, here to help you. So this channel is for you if you are curious about gambling addiction or someone that struggles. I want to try and inspire change within you with relatable stories, with tips and tricks and things, and just sharing some of my own journey, which I am far from an oracle with all the answers. It's a struggle, an ongoing struggle as a compulsive gambler. And I was going to make this video today really quite sciencey about the nuances of the chemical imbalances in the brain and what happens when a compulsive gambler gambles. The brain lights up like a Christmas tree. What is it that's happening in that? And I might still do a video on that topic because I find that incredibly interesting. And I do like to geek out and be a bit nerdy with that kind of thing because it is useful. It's very useful for a compulsive gambler. And I guess it just piques my interest. But rather than that, I'm going to tell, a few stories and just anecdotes of how just gambling, I suppose for me, it just shunted itself to the front of my priority list every single time. And there's always that thing where, people, they think back when they're in recovery and they think, how on earth did I ever have time to gamble? Because I'm busy doing this, I'm busy doing that. Life feels like it's chaotic and hectic at the best of times. How did I ever have the time? And it's quite strange to think about, really. Here I am, 8 months and 1 week without any form of gambling. But I always found the time because it was a priority. And it elbowed and shoved its way to the front of whatever I was doing, whatever else I was thinking about. It found its way to the front of the queue. And I suppose in some ways, in a perverse way, that was some form of escapism benefit that I got out of it, because if there was other problems, I could just live in the escapism of that world of gambling. And therefore I didn't have to worry about any of the other things, that perceived problems and troubles that I had. But little did I know that gambling was the biggest problem, and it was masquerading itself as the antidote when really it was the biggest ongoing problem by quite some distance. And it was like I was being run by a motor when I would wake up in the morning. And any little pocket of time I had in the day, I would find time to gamble. It was like I was in a blinkered kind of vacuum where I just couldn't hear the noises or anything outside of the lane and kind of the tunnel vision that I was in to place a bet. And it just becomes so all-consuming to the point where you're just constantly wanting to repeat the behavior. And I think even an inexperienced compulsive gambler understands that, or outgrows the idea, I should say, that it's about the money very, very quickly, because you realize that it's the act of the doing that is keeping you stimulated. And yes, there's a balance sheet running in the background, which is not insignificant, because as you start to lose or win, you can then buy the things that you think are going to give you additional endorphins or dopamine, or you maybe owe someone some money, or you fall behind on debts and payments, and there's an urgency around that. So there's the robbing Peter to pay Paul kind of aspect of winning, allocating your funds, winning and losing within out of your gambling fund pot. Which I never used to like spending any money on anything else. It would always be that was my money for my gambling. So why do I want to go and buy that nice shirt even though I've just won 400 quid? Like, that's gambling kitty. That feels ridiculous. I kind of want the shirt, but like, why would I bother? And there was pockets of my day where, like, an example for me is I hate doing the washing up. other half, Mrs. often cooks, and I will do the washing up. And I would always relish the idea of kind of washing up, because there would be football going on. And the way our kitchen is kind of positioned, there's the sofa where she would be sat on, and I would be slightly round the corner washing up. And I would often have the Bet365 app open, even when I was banned from the account, but I was using it to update the scores, because I'd suspended myself online, but I'd have a bet running on the number of goals in the Champions League games or something like that I would place in one of the bookmaker stores. And I would just constantly be kind of refreshing it. And it would almost make the washing up more palatable. It would almost become something that I semi-enjoyed, because there was this dovetail of gambling behaviour going on with it. And my life did become totally unmanageable because of the frequency in which I was gambling. And, there were times where I would astound myself at the creative lengths that I would go to be able to place a bet. I've spoken of some of the stories on this channel in the past. Big family roast dinner, and I would sneak off to the toilet to place bets, or, if I needed to go multiple times, I would maybe say that I had a bit of an upset stomach or something like that to justify it. Being out with friends, and, I just need to go and check that there's a ticket on the car. Just going to go and top up the car quickly. You just wait here, won't be long, via Ladbrokes or via Coral or wherever it was, to jump in to put an additional bet on. And there is of course, there is a scientific the process going on of addiction within me, and there's certain stimulus responses going on in the brain, like I say, that I will go into in another video for sure. But it would just become something that was just so important. And, I work in fitness, and a big hobby and passion of mine is the gym and weight training, and I'm arguably a little bit of possibly a cross-addicted exercise addict in a roundabout way. And I would be really maybe set up for a big day in the gym or something like that, and the gambling cravings would come in, and I'd barely do the warm-up, and then sometimes I'd just walk away from from the gym workout. I'd drive to the gym, be in there 10 minutes, and just be like, no, the urge is just too strong. It's won out in this instance. Yes, I love my gym. Yes, I'm semi-excited by my workout, but the gravitational pull of it was just enough in that moment. I suppose I would know it was there, and I would almost try to go to the gym to be like, something a bit more wholesome, something to kind of fight against it, something that is not gambling, that my future self is going to thank me for. Let's go and do some deadlifts. Let's go and do some weights. And then it would just peck away at me, and I'd be warming up and thinking, today's not the day. And there was times where I literally drove from the gym straight to the town centre, gone into the bookmakers, not even had lunch, gone next door to the newsagents and bought 3 or 4 bags of crisps or something like that, just to feel like I'm eating, I'm layering on that stimulus that the gambling has given me. And I've gone almost full circle from one end of the spectrum to the other, from someone that was going to go to the gym, that's passionate about their physique and their levels of strength and everything that's gone into that in 10, 15 plus years I've been training for. Now I'm eating foods that directly sabotage, for want of a better words, my efforts in that domain. And here I am just walking aimlessly around the town centre, looking at fixtures, thinking, okay, there's another kick-off at 2 o'clock because it's a Sunday. There's another game at 4:30. Or there's foreign games that are happening later. Like, what am I going to... And just not being social, wouldn't want to have a conversation with anyone if I bumped into a long-lost friend that I was curious about what they're up to. Just in my own head for a day, gambling. And I remember, I think I've stayed in bookmakers for hours. I think almost double figure hours I think I did, with a few odd little bathroom breaks and runs to get drinks and things like that, or runs to the ATM to get more cash out. And yeah, I've spoken before about, and a little bit of science, you know, that the idea is that you essentially do become what's known as anhedonic, which means that you no longer get the stimulation from things that you otherwise enjoy. So going to the beach and sunbathing is fun and above average fun for most people, but it's an ironic joke when you're in the throes of the fog of gambling addiction. Going for a walk with the dog is one of my all-time favourite pastimes. It is not even on my radar if I am gambling. It is a nuisance. It is something that time out of my day needs to be found when that should be and could be allocated to gambling. And that is just how encompassing it is. I've said before, I think it is one of the worst addictions in terms of frequency that you can do it, when you factor in mobile phones and access smartphones on the internet and that kind of thing. You know, I remember I would go into the Apple store and often check Odds Checker and Paddy Power website and things like that, or in the tablets in the Apple shop, because I'd locked gambling off of all my devices, my iPad, my phone. There was nothing that I could use. I had like the parental lock on there that someone else knew the code for. So all I was going to do is frustrate myself by putting in false attempts and locking it for further. And I'd often kind of go to lengths like that and just kind of drive in there and think, okay, right, let's recap the fixtures. What are the prices for tonight? Okay, so if I can find my way into one of the shops, that's what I'm looking at, because I don't know what the odds are currently. And when I think back now, how did I have the time? Lord only knows. But if you are like me, a problem gambler, you will find it. And I like to end these videos with somewhat of a positive uplift. You know, there's a lot of therapeutic nature for me in telling my story of gambling, because it feels like the old me in some ways, and I feel to an extent like I'm layers removed and detached from that. But you know, it's nice to have a few kind of words of wisdom, if you will, and that is what I would say to you is, you know, you can definitely recover. You can get to the point where you enjoy these wholesome activities again. The brain does reset to a certain baseline level, or whatever it does, from the corrupted pathways that you've done in the constant stimulus of gambling, and you've desensitized yourself to the normal level of endorphins. Say more on the sciencey side of stuff in another video, but I wish you well if you are someone that is in recovery. I'm grateful for all the comments that I get on these videos. I love connecting with people from all over the world. If you enjoy these videos and enjoy these kind of topics, please feel free to subscribe. It helps me reach more people about a topic that is growing in the wrong direction and something that I'm incredibly, incredibly passionate about. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video very soon. Take care.